A grey-haired man sat alone on a park bench one cool autumn morning, watching golden leaves drift from the trees. He was lost in thoughts about the years gone by. The playground in the distance rang with the laughter of children, a sound that felt like an echo from his own distant past. How quickly it all goes, he mused. One day you're the child chasing butterflies, and in what feels like the next, you're older, sitting quietly, catching your breath, wondering where those days went. He sighed, feeling the weight of time in his bones, a heaviness of regret and nostalgia intermingled. As he sat there, a young boy wandered over and asked if he could share the bench. The man smiled and nodded. There was something uncannily familiar about the boy's bright eyes and curious face. They sat in companionable silence for a while. Eventually, the boy broke the silence. "Mister, do you know what time it is?" The man chuckled softly and pulled out his old pocket watch, a gift he'd received from his father long ago. "It's just past 10, he answered, showing the boy the watch. The boy marveled at the antique timepiece, its ticking sound steady and calm. "That watch looks old," the boy said. The man nodded. "It's been ticking for a long time, keeping track of my days." The boy swung his legs that barely reached the ground. He seemed to be pondering something serious for a child. Finally, he spoke again. "How long does it take to become old?" The man was taken aback by the question. He looked at the child, who gazed up at him earnestly. After a moment, the man answered, "To me, it feels like it happened in a blink. I remember being your age as clearly as if it were yesterday, but many decades have passed since then." The boy frowned slightly, trying to grasp that. He had no real concept of decades. A year still felt like an eternity to him. He said, almost to himself, "I can't imagine being grown up and old." The man smiled wistfully. "I know. When I was your age, I thought being old was a lifetime away, something so distant. And then one day I woke up and most of that lifetime had passed." A breeze scattered some leaves at their feet. The boy watched them skitter across the path. "Do you miss being a kid?" he asked quietly. The man's throat tightened. He hadn't expected such a direct, tender question. He took a breath. "Sometimes," he admitted. "I miss the feeling of having so much time ahead of me, long summers that seemed to last forever, days when all I worried about was what game to play next. There's a certain magic in being a child, when the world is new and every moment feels full of promise." The boy nodded, as if he could sense the truth in the man's words, even if he hadn't lived them yet. "I like being a kid," the boy said simply, "but I can't wait to grow up either." He paused, then looked up at the man with a serious expression that seemed beyond his years. "Are you happy, mister? Did you do all the things you wanted to do?" The man felt a sting in his heart, a question he had asked himself in the stillness of many nights. He looked into the boy's eyes, which were oddly reflective, as though they carried a piece of his own soul. In that moment, something clicked. Those eyes were just like the ones in an old photograph he kept in a drawer at home, a photo of himself at about 10 years old. A wave of emotion crashed over him. Was this encounter merely a strange coincidence, or was time itself offering him a moment of reflection? For a second, he wondered if he was dreaming. But the boy was real, sitting right there, awaiting his answer. Gathering himself, the man replied softly, "I have had many happy moments. I did some of the things I dreamed of, but not all. Life had twists and turns I didn't expect. Some dreams changed, some I let go of, maybe too easily." He paused, the boy listening intently. "I fell in love. I raised a family. I worked hard. There were days of joy I'll never forget. But there were also times I got caught up in the wrong things, worrying too much about the future or dwelling on the past, and not spending enough time living in the present. I wish I had savored the ordinary days more, instead of always rushing." The boy swung his feet thoughtfully and then asked, "What do you wish you could tell your younger self?" The man's eyes watered slightly at the innocence of that question, coming from the very image of his younger self. He answered, voice thick with feeling, I would tell him to cherish every moment, the good and the bad, because they're all part of the story. I'd tell him not to be in such a hurry to grow up, that growing up will happen on its own. I'd say, spend more time with the people you love, because they won't be here forever. And don't worry so much about mistakes or what others think. Time has a way of smoothing out the things that seem so important now into things that you learn from later. The boy looked down, absorbing the words. The man continued, finding he was now speaking as much to himself as to the child. I'd also tell him that it's never too late to pursue what matters. Even as you get older, you can still learn and change. Every day you wake up is a chance to do something meaningful, to connect with someone, to enjoy being alive. Time is precious, and once a moment is gone, it's gone. So make sure you're really there for it while it's happening. They sat with that thought for a while. The distant chatter of the park and the rustle of leaves filled the silence. Finally, the boy asked, "Do you think I'll remember this when I'm older?" The man smiled gently, a tear finally spilling over and rolling down his cheek. He didn't bother to wipe it away. "I think," he said slowly, "that some part of you will carry this moment, even if you don't remember it word for word. Maybe one day, far in the future, you'll find yourself sitting on a bench like this, and you'll feel what you feel right now and understand it fully." The boy noticed the man's tear, and his own eyes welled up in sympathy, though he didn't fully understand why. Impulsively, he scooted closer and gave the man a quick hug. The man closed his eyes, hugging the child gently in return, as if embracing a fragment of his own past. It felt like a hug across time, stitching together the years between who he was and who he had become. When they pulled apart, the boy asked quietly, "What's your name, mister?" The man answered with a smile and a hint of amusement, "My name is William." The boy's face lit up with surprise. "That's my name too," he exclaimed. The man nodded, having expected as much, but still feeling a warmth spread through his chest to hear it said aloud. Time felt momentarily fluid, the past and present overlapping in the space between their smiles. A nearby clock tower began to chime the hour, its bell tolls resonating across the park. The boy's mother called for him from across the lawn, her voice carrying on the breeze. The boy stood up, realizing it was time to leave. He hesitated, looking at the man, at William, at his future self, unsure how to say goodbye to someone he felt strangely connected to. The man gave a reassuring nod. "Go on," he said kindly. "Your mom is waiting." The boy took a few steps, then turned back and waved. "See you later," he said in a hopeful tone. The man waved back. "Take care, William." The boy ran off toward his mother, the sound of his youthful voice trailing behind. The man remained on the bench, watching the child himself disappear into the swirl of life once more. His heart ached and healed all at once in that surreal encounter. He leaned back and exhaled a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Whether the boy was truly him or just a poignant coincidence hardly mattered. It felt real, and it had given him a gift, a chance to remember and to speak gently to the child he once was, the one who still lived quietly in his heart. He looked at the pocket watch in his hand, its steady ticking reminding him that time marches on. But for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel as if time was his enemy. Instead, he felt gratitude. He had been given the years, however many, to experience so much, and perhaps he still had years ahead, years he could fill with new memories, guided by the wisdom he had just put into words. He realized that in advising his younger self to cherish life, he was also reminding his present self to do the same. The world around him seemed sharper and more vibrant now, the autumn colors more brilliant, the air crisper, the laughter of children more sweet. He understood that every stage of life has its beauty, the innocence of childhood, the passions of youth, the responsibilities and discoveries of adulthood, and the wisdom of old age. Each is fleeting, but each is a treasure while it lasts. No single moment can be held onto forever, but in a way, moments can echo across time in our memories and in the way they shape us. With a renewed lightness in his step, the man finally rose from the bench. He felt the stiffness in his joints, but it didn't bother him as much now. As he walked away, he took one last look at the spot where he and the boy had talked, etching it into his memory. He silently thanked the mysterious ways of time for that meeting. He would carry it with him for the rest of his days, as a reminder that time is not just something that slips away, it is also something that connects us to our past selves, to our future selves, and to everyone we love. And as long as those connections live on in heart and memory, no moment is truly lost to time.